Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have another great update for you from the brand Richard Legrand, or also known as RLG. Now, they're basically a micro brand focusing on combining very classic aesthetics with modern components and finishing, which tends to be a bit of a reoccurring theme within the space. But I gotta say, RLG has been known to really pull things off at some really competitive pricing. And for this particular update, of course, we're looking at another dive watch of theirs, some key common characteristics and design language when you're looking for a dive watch. Of course, you're going to want water resistance, typically with some type of screw down crown. You're going to want something that's tough, legible with a dive time bezel, and a diver's extension is always nice if on bracelets. Now, this particular model is known as their Odyssey diver, and this is in particular, this is the Fume green color variants. Now, this is the 5th iteration of their popular diver line, and it really embodies the recent brand refresh. So, like a lot of these independent brands are known for, Richard Legrand listens to its audience. And, you know, people had things to say about the aesthetics, the bracelets, the different branding from all those different pieces. And yeah, this is their latest kind of iteration in terms of what they've settled on. And they're offering it at a very competitive price at $429 direct from RLG. And I think this thing is still very, very competitive, if not probably more competitive than it has been even in the past. So, you know, classic 40mm diameter. It's one of those things where it's a dive watch that a lot of people can get into. The lug to lug is quite short at 45.8. And yeah, it's definitely a looker, and it has some really cool elements, especially within this iteration, that I think help make it a bit more versatile than it might have been even in its past iterations, were also that were also quite you know, popular as well and typically sold out. So yeah, I think this is a cool one. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. All right, let's go ahead and pick this up. As you guys can see, really great proportions, very classically dialed in there. Only 13 millimeters thick, or 11.5 if you're not counting the crystals. But you do have a nice kind of rounded 3D insert here, as well as, of course, the slightly domed sapphire, which is actually double domed, so even at very harsh angles it still remains quite legible. There's very little distortion there, even at extremely harsh angles where you really shouldn't even be expecting for that to be a legible dial. So I can definitely appreciate that. I'm not a huge green dial guy, but you know what, the way this Fume dial is, it really does appear black most of the time, and then it just has these little different sunray pops of that emerald green, which I think looks really, really, really handsome. So again, the lug to lug, quite compact, and it's also using female end links, so it's a really true lug to lug rating. And you can see there that the finishing is really quite nice. Look at the transition between brushed and polished, very nice. Some people might not like this bracelets with the kind of rivet style. I don't mind it. You know, I think this one, at least it doesn't have like the faux rivets on the side. It just kind of has a bit of that look with kind of the end cap. But I think where this one really comes in handy is that it does have, of course, drilled lugs, so you can make this quite a strap monster, I think. And I'll probably at some point get it on this sweet Artem, pretty much the top of the line entries when it comes to a very premium sailcloth strap. So we'll just stay tuned for that. And yeah, this thing is sweet. So let's go get into some of the details here. 120 click unidirectional bezel, fully lumed sapphire, very nice even with the gloves. Real easy to grip. Ooh. Lines up, so very nice from that standpoint. Now getting into some of the details, you do have a very nicely done signed screw down crown, and it does actually align pretty well. So like if I want to like make it perfect, I would just back off the screw down just a touch, and look at that. Very nice, very well executed, quite tactile to the hand, to the touch, so great experience there. You can't see the movement, but it is a Miyota 9039, which means that it is a no-date movement, so there's no ghost position for the crown. You get that nice kind of deeper stamping there, which looks great, but you can't see the movement, but you know, you don't really necessarily need to, but just so you know that what's in there does work, and it is the right application for this type of no-date setup, which I think looks gorgeous with a 12, 3, 6, and 9 indices there. I think it looks fantastic. Another nice piece is that you are getting C3 Swiss Superluminova, so this is going to burn like a true torch. And in this case, the little tint of green that you do get with C3 in daylight actually pays dividends to kind of flowing with the watch itself, because of course it does have a bit of green play as well. So I think that is also very nice. Water resistant down to 200 meters or 660 feet, 20 millimeter lug width, which really does help with straps. And then you're getting this nice tapering vintage rivet style bracelet with solid links and end links. It tapers from 20 millimeters down to 18. It does use pin and collar connectors, so it's definitely not one that's super easy to set, but if you've done pin and collars before, you'll be fine. You know, for me, being on the channel, of course, and buying so many watches, I'm absolutely fine with pin and collar. I think one of the nice things about pin and collar is that you can set it and forget it and really never worry about it again, unless you need to add another link if it's the summer and your wrist gets extra swollen or something like that. But I think it's very nice. And another nice piece is you're getting an actual milled clasp, not just the milled folding section, which a lot of people do worry about. Not anything to worry about in this case. And then you also do get a couple of different micro adjust holes there, which works out great. Nicely signed, nicely beveled, and then everything kind of ties in. You got the high polish accent, high polished, comes all the way around, high polished, of course, and yeah. It just looks very, very good. So with that said, let's go ahead, get this piece on the wrist and see how it wears. All right, as you can see on my 7 1/4 inch wrist, this thing wears really, really well. I mean, I think it would be nice visually if there was just a touch more taper on this metal bracelet. You can see it's much milder. It's only going from 20 down to 18. I think if it went down to 16, it might be a little bit nicer in terms of proportions, with the, of course, more modest case width there at 40 millimeters. But this by no means is you know, a real drawback. It's more of just kind of a nitpick there, but I think this looks really great. Even on my, you know, I'd say on the larger side of average in terms of wrist, it sits really, really well. They do a really good job with, you know, really negotiating that case, the visual case heft, by really breaking it down into 3 sections. You know, you do have the top bezel, then you have the mid case, then you have, of course, the undercut of the case. So it's really just making that mid case appear much thinner to the eye, which all kind of tricks you into thinking that it's a thinner watch in general, and it lays really quite nice. But with that said, I did say that it would be nice to get this thing on a sailcloth, so let's quickly go ahead and swap that out. Okay, as you can see, very nice on this premium sailcloth strap, and honestly, the fit and finish and execution on this watch, I think, really flow well with the premium nature of the strap. I know some of you might be thinking, hey, you know, it's a $80 strap plus, so you know, maybe this watch, you know, at under 500 bucks, under $450 really, you know, who knows if you'd want to spend on a strap like this. Me personally, I think it looks phenomenal, and it really does help actually accentuate the beauty of the lugs, because, you know, typically everything kind of blends in when you have the end links, but in this case, when you look at it, I think it looks really great. darn. You know what? Maybe I'll leave it on here for the Lume shots, low light transition, etc. So you guys can just kind of get a feel for it. I think also a nice thing is that if you're not a fan of the faux rivets on the bracelet, seeing this hopefully gives you guys an idea of how this will actually look on you know, the sailcloth strap of your own choice. And the nice thing is, with these really nice bevels that are on this buckle, it actually suits the bevels and, you know, just the overall more premium construction here on the RLG. So with that said, let's get it off the wrist, charge it up, get some low light transition lume, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. As you can see, really absolutely beautiful lume there. Very, very nice. But we also like to get some light transition. I decided, of course, to keep the bracelet in view there in frame, so you guys can actually see how the light plays off of the bracelet as well. You can see how uniform the light glides over the brushing, which really is, I think, a telltale sign for you guys to know how well it is finished. Also, you can see that the dial and the way that it really just goes almost to a very deep black with just these beautiful little burns and flares of green. And the nice thing is it really does tie in to the lume there. And also you can see that this thing is quite legible even in mixed lighting conditions, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to be coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, the shade of a tree, or maybe just spending time in your favorite automobile. So because of that, I do want to let you guys know, one, how of course the colors render in less than optimal lighting, but also how do the textures and whatnot appear. So even we'll get into some high contrast lighting here, which typically can really blow everything out in the frame and help you catch some of those imperfections. You can see here a little bit of wear or just some fingerprints and whatnot on there, but it does give you a better look there at the brushing. And then of course this dial and the way the black bezel insert really plays with it, you can see that it's just, it flows, man. I'm digging it. So with all that said, let's go ahead, hit the lights back here and get into some closing thoughts, guys. So on the wrist, very, very classic proportions. I mean, honestly fits almost any situation. It can be dressed up, it can be dressed down. You can see you can throw it on a strap, which is great. And this isn't the only type of strap. I'm sure it'll look great on a Tropic, which do get provided with these. So that's always an option. Or you can always go with some type of nylon NATO style as well, or Perlons. I think it would also look fantastic on. And yeah, it's a very timeless design aesthetic, and I know it's tough to really dial into that without it just being very overly vanilla almost. And I think here they do a very good job of finding a nice balance between being, you know, quite versatile and timeless without being boring. So I definitely give them props for that. In terms of model variations, of course, you do have a black on black, a blue on blue, as well as a pastel blue with a black bezel insert, and the fume green with a black bezel insert is what you see here. In terms of comparable models, there are tons of vintage inspired big crowns out there, from Tudor to Oris to Zodiac, but I think this one packs a ton of punch at the price point. Again, only $429 directly from RLG, which I think is a heck of a price considering what you're getting. Even if you compare it to a very popular kind of watch, a micro brand watch within this range, something like the NTH subs, you know, I think it still compares really well. Of course, this is going to compare really well specs-wise to more mainstream watches, but it's even competitive within the super competitive, hyper-competitive micro brand market. So I think that's also a point of pride here from RLG. And yeah, fantastic on the sailcloth. I mean, it looks good. So, but let me know what you guys think. For me, guys, bottom line, it's a very handsome and capable sports watch offering a ton of style and value. But again, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you liked the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.